Hello, so I'm back by the driveway apple tree. This is the usual spot where I filmed a number of videos from this location. So just down here you can see the witch hazel leaves poking out from underneath all these apple branches which have sunk down with a large crop on them. So there were several uprights up there, what are called centre leads. There's only one left now, but the others have sunk right down. So I don't know if you can see on the right here, the branch has sunk right down with the weight of the crop on there. So we're, let's talk about the date. So end of August. So if you follow the normie calendar, as I call it, end of August, almost back to school. Late August bank holiday is tomorrow, so we're Sunday today, so it's a bit quieter here today than it has been. And if you follow the apple religion, which I'm trying to promote, yeah, it's the beginning of the apple season, so that's quite an important time really. And it's a time when I think more people should know about and don't seem to. So the apples are just starting to fall basically, but a lot of them aren't really quite ripe yet. So you can see I've been collecting these ones up from underneath the tree here. And so this leads to a couple of questions. Is one, how can you tell whether the apples are ripe? And two, is there anything you can do with unripe apples? So we'll get on to those questions in just a second. I just want to give you a quick peek underneath here. So this is, in the winter I made a video about me clearing the ivy from this trunk here. You can see there's a little bit coming back up on the right there. And I've put down a lot of leaf litter and grass trimmings and stuff around the trunk. That's just to stop weeds coming up, and it gives a nice soft landing for the apples that are falling now. So I tend to clear away the early ones so that then when the good ones come, it's easier to collect them and there's less flies and things around. So, apple ripeness. How can you tell whether apples are ripe or not? So if you cut them in half and look at the pips, if the pips are white or a very pale brown, then they're not ripe generally. And if they're dark, like a really dark brown or black, then normally that means the apple is ripe. But really ultimately it's the taste test. So you have to bite into it, and if it's sour and chewy and gives you indigestion, then it's probably not ripe. And if it's sweet and juicy and the flesh is melting, then it's ripe. So let's get on to the second question. What can you do with unripe apples? So I've got a Kilner jar here, and these are unripe apples that I've chopped up, and you can possibly make out that they're fermenting in there. There's some bubbles coming up, and the ones on top with the skin on are just to keep them under the solution. So it's a brine solution in there. So I'm just going to open this. So can you see the bubbles are coming up? So these ones on the top here are just to weigh down. So you want to keep the apples that you've chopped up under the solution, and that stops them from going brown and going off, and they start to ferment. And so if they're unripe, they're like chewy and hard, but once you've done this, I don't know if you can hear that, lovely and crisp and juicy. Try another one. So it's a good way. The early apples that fall off, they've often got bruises and bits you need to chop out anyway. So you can chop out the best bits and just stick in brine. I've got another video I've made where I make like a mulch with them. So they're good for compost as well, but if you fancy eating them, this one's gone a bit too soft, so I'm going to discard that one. So you put them in there after about a day or two you can eat them, and then they last maybe a week or two, but they are fermenting, so that means you need to be really careful. So don't go doing this and putting the jar in a cupboard with all your other food, because pressure will build up in there and they tend to leak, or in an extreme case you can have an explosion. So you want to use a jar where it's not a completely sealed jar, and sometimes it makes a noise as the gas is escaping. So my suggestion is to put them like out in the shed, or if you've got a space outside in the shade that's undercover. So we've got like a shed for hanging up the washing, so I stick them out there and it's cool, and if the liquid spills out then it's not like a big deal, I can just sort it out. So that's one idea for you to do with your unripe apples, and I'll put a link into the video that I made about using them as a mulch on younger trees. So I think we've got some people coming by now, so it might get noisier again. So I think I'll call it a day there. I just wish you a happy apple season. Hope that you manage to get some nice apples this year and do some nice things with them. Make something new, something you haven't made before, or something old that is a favourite recipe. Bye then.